On today's hot sheet, I'm discussing yesterday's Fed meeting, Jerome Powell's comments on housing, Zillow's quarter three shareholder letter, and I also just had a rumor from the National Association of Realtors slip by my desk. I'm going to share that with you. Why not? Today is Thursday, November 2nd, 2023. I am Byron Lazine, and the hot sheet starts now. All right. It just keeps getting like more and more. We've got big day after big day here in housing. Today, of course, we have everything that Jerome Powell said about housing. I have the breakdowns, the timestamps. We're going to pick it all apart so that we can be prepared moving forward on what the Fed is thinking, how they're thinking about the housing market, how they're thinking about the economy, what their decisions are today, and what they will be moving forward. We're going to break all of that down. But first, I just got a rumor that came across my desk. This rumor is I got it from a couple of different sources, unnamed BAM sources. I think this might be the first time we've ever, I don't know if you can get sued for this, but we're just going to fly by the seat of our pants here at BAM. We've got a couple unnamed sources. All right. I'm just going to leave it at that. With National Association of Realtors news. Obviously, if you have been following the biggest news in real estate this week, you know that the Kansas City jury, the Missouri trial, Sitzer and Burnett, came to a verdict earlier this week. They found that realtors in Missouri and four other franchisors. I don't know why I can hear that. Bobby. You're playing it on Oh, I'm sorry. I hit my phone. I'm like, where I'm talking to myself here. Sorry. Sorry about that, guys. They found obviously that there was this conspiracy, whether you agree with that or not. When we did a live stream, you can check out the live reactions right after that verdict came out here on the live tab on this YouTube channel. All right. We did live reactions. We did a real word yesterday on bringing you up to date. A lot of the feedback was this NAR leadership has got to go. National Association of Realtors was already under a lot of pressure for a variety of things, but their inability to perform on this particular lawsuit, and there's another one coming up in January. Now there's a national one that every MLS user is named in, essentially, along with 7 franchisors and NAR again. So a lot of people calling for Bob Goldberg's job. Let me give you the key piece of information that I got from unnamed sources here today. NAR, National Association of Realtors, has an emergency meeting at 9 a.m. today. So if that's East Coast and not Chicago time, that means that they are in the meeting right now. I don't know if it was East Coast DC time or if it was Central Chicago time, but 9 a.m. this morning, emergency National Association of Realtors meeting. The NAR staff, this has leaked out from NAR staff, is very sure that this meeting is to announce the new CEO of the National Association of Realtors. Bob Goldberg, current CEO, will stay on for the rest of the year. Okay, well, what's that? Another 60 days? He's going to get us through Turkey Day and the end of the year holidays. But this new CEO will start to take some of the heat off of him. This is consensus from NAR staff. Also, the consensus is they have a name. They have a new CEO, obviously. They're going to announce her later today, as early as later today. It's going to be a woman named Margie Grant. This is the consensus. If NAR staff is correct that Bob Goldberg is out as CEO, Margie Grant in as new CEO, then this is really going to be somebody that has history in the associations, has a lot of ties to the National Association of Realtors. I don't know more about her other than what I've been able to find online. Um, Here we go. So she's the chief executive officer right now of Florida Realtors. It's the largest professional trade association in Florida. She's a certified association executive, CAE, holds the Realtor Association Certified Executive, RCE designation. If anybody knows what that means, let me know in the comments. Earning recognition for specialized industry knowledge, as well as association achievements and experience. She's a member of the American Society of Association Executives. So seemingly being groomed to be an executive. Florida, obviously, along with California, Texas, one of the states with the most highest agent count. She's been recognized as an industry leader for her dedication, hard work, being named to the Swanepoel Power 200 list of the most powerful leaders in residential real estate for several years, including 2022. That's a big list. Swanepoel Power 200. They do a good job with it. That's a big list. There's credibility behind that list. They do a lot of homework for that list, so she's been on that. Okay. But to the point of that I just made, she's been on National Association of Realtors network. Remember, we talk about this good old boy, good old girl club. If you've been following closely with the National Association of Realtors, National Association of Realtors under a lot of heat for a lot of reasons. Much of your feedback was there needs to be an upheaval of the biggest association in the country. This would not be that. This would be more of the old. The state association also recently was recognized Florida Trends top 100 best companies to work for Florida. But she's also been named to the advisory council chair for the National Association of Realtors. Riding with the brand 2023. Nobody knows what that means. There isn't a person on planet Earth that knows what riding with the brand 2023 means. But NAR did pay $46 million to Hava's marketing group. You can look up on nowbam.com what NAR pays these CEOs. I can't see the comment.
Apparently, RCE is one of the highest certification for a.
Okay, so apparently that RCE is a high certification for an executive. So it sounds like Margie Grant has been well groomed for this position. I don't know anything. She could be phenomenal. She earned her doctor degree, cum laude. I don't know. Cum laude. I know it's something else. I'm like, Suffolk University School Law in Boston, bachelor's degree, political science, University of New Hampshire, Durham. She's a member of the Florida Bar, Massachusetts. She'd run circles around me when it comes to the textbooks. There's no question about it. She's well decorated. She can probably read words better than I can. But she is part of the old network at NAR. It'll be interesting to see the approach that she takes to members who not only feel like there's a lot of questions left to be answered about the sexual allegations that have happened at NAR, where the money is spent. Go look up on nowbam.com and check out the article we've done on maybe, Bobby, you can even just link it down below. You can search it and find it on the salaries of NAR. I mean, Bob Goldberg, he's going to get an exit package. We're going to pay him out over the next 2 years. We're talking $3 million a year on his sunset package. She'll come in making less, probably $1.5 million, somewhere in that range, and then it just starts ratcheting it up year over year. But she's not part of a new vision of how to rethink National Association of Realtors. She would be part of the old, establishment, the old guard of how we're grooming these CEOs. Okay. If you're in the Florida Association, because she's your chief executive officer, love to know if you have thoughts on Margie Grant, who is being rumored right now to be announced as early as today as the next National Association of Realtor CEO. Bob Goldberg out. Potentially Margie in. This is a rumor. This is not confirmed. I want to be very clear on that. This is Bam Rumor Mill here on the hot sheet. All right, let's get to what we all came here for, and that is Jerome Powell's comments yesterday about the U.S. housing market. Who has more control right now on the U.S. housing market? Is it Jerome Powell or is it Michael Ketchmark, the lead attorney for the plaintiffs over there in Missouri, who is now leading a national lawsuit? Let me know in the comments. Who is controlling real estate more? Is it Jerome or is it Ketchmark? I've got my vote on Jerome. All right, the Federal Reserve issues an FOMC statement. Jerome Powell spoke. We have clips from his press conference. We have done the homework here at BAM, and we've time-stamped out the 50-plus minute conference. Every single time he talks about housing, we're going to go to those clips here momentarily, and I'll react to those in real time on what he said about the housing market. Recent indicators suggest this is to lead off their statement. Recent indicators suggest that economic activity expanded at a strong pace in the third quarter. Job gains have moderated since earlier in the year, but remain strong, and the unemployment rate has remained low. Inflation remains elevated, so they're not satisfied with inflation. They are satisfied with the U.S. banking system. Think back earlier in the year, how catastrophic banking was. It was like big two of the three biggest bank collapses of all time. The U.S. banking system is sound and resilient, according to the FOMC. Tighter financial credit conditions for households and businesses are likely to weigh on economic activity. That's hiring and inflation. Tighter conditions are coming for your business and for your household. Jerome's been saying that for a while. The extent of these effects remain uncertain. The committee remains highly attentive to inflation risks. Okay, so the big news here is that they did not raise, but that's the smallest text of all time.
Jerome needs a hobby to put him in touch with the real world.
There you go. Jerome needs a hobby. The big news, obviously, is that the Federal Reserve's rate-setting group on Wednesday unanimously agreed to hold the federal funds rate in a target range between 5.25 and 5.5, where it has been since July. So we're remaining even par. We're at where we're at. Second consecutive meeting that they chose to hold. This is following a string of 11 hikes, including 4 so far in 2023. There's been a lot of belief that in December, we're going to have another rate hike. That belief was prior. That belief now has lessened significantly. And it's not as strong. That the market doesn't believe it as much as they did before. One of the reasons going into this meeting, Jerome Powell said we really need to watch these long-term treasury bond yields. And the 10-year, which had been screaming, was very concerning to the committee. It was top of mind. Now, the 10-year really likes what Jerome Powell did yesterday. The 10-year really responded favorably to the 10-year yesterday. If you've been following the 10-year and the 30-year, yesterday, what Jerome Powell did was a big win for the 10-year and for the 30-year fixed rate. Look at the 10-year as we sit here this morning. It's been a while since we've seen 4.650. We're inching now closer, all of a sudden, a quick turn of events, a downturn on the 30-year fixed. We're inching closer for the first time in recent memory. It seems like forever to maybe even getting back to 7.5. Yesterday, we were at 7.69. Okay, why did the market like it so much? And what were Jerome's comments directly about your housing market? Let's go to the first clip when Jerome mentioned housing, and I'll react to that.
Boosted by a surge in consumer spending. After picking up somewhat over the summer, activity in the housing sector has flattened out and remains well below levels of a year ago, largely reflecting higher mortgage rates. Higher interest rates also appear to be weighing on business fixed investment. The labor market remains tight, but supply and demand conditions continue to come into better balance. Over the past 3 months, payroll job gains averaged 266,000 jobs per month, a strong pace that is nevertheless below that seen earlier in the year. The unemployment rate remains low at 3.8%. Strong job creation has been accompanied by an increase in the supply of workers. The labor force participation rate has moved up since late last year, particularly for individuals aged 25 to 54 years, and immigration has rebounded to pre-pandemic levels. Nominal wage growth has shown some signs of easing, and job vacancies have declined so far this year.
Okay. So the big takeaway there on that, first, within 2 minutes of his prepared statement, he talks about housing. The big statement was, after picking up someone over the summer, activity in the housing sector has flattened out and remains well below levels of a year ago, largely reflecting these higher mortgage rates. It's in line with what Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo just said. We covered it earlier in the week here on the hot sheet when they said housing is back in a recession. Remember when the Fed started to raise interest rates last year, they said, we are going to put housing into a recession. And Jerome Powell did that. He accomplished that. He put housing market into a contraction. Then we had this past spring market. Housing got out of that recession. There was very significant demand, as there often is in the spring market. That demand pulled housing back out of a housing recession. And now Wells Fargo, now Goldman Sachs says, as we sit here in November of 2023, and we see demand softening, we still don't have inventory in a lot of markets, but it is starting to increase slowly, okay, across the board. We're starting to see pressure on prices in Q4, as we seasonally do, not an abnormal thing. Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs says we're in a housing recession. So this is one of the easiest tools the Fed has to fight inflation, to jack up these rates and attack housing. They did it last year. And Jerome is saying, hey, we are still winning that battle. Again, Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo would support that statement. Let's go to the second clip in his prepared statements. Then what's really interesting is the Q&A segment of the conversation when Jerome is answering direct questions. Let's first go to his second prepared statement when he does mention the housing market. This is about 4 minutes in. Go ahead, Bobby.
My colleagues and I are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We are highly attentive to the risks that high inflation poses to both sides of our mandate, and we are strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective.
Okay. So then stop destroying, because when they're making these restrictive policies, businesses are going to be hurt, households are going to be hurt. Which households, though, are going to be hurt the most? It's that lower income household. It's the one that needs affordable housing. And he's talking about it. It's hard for them to afford essentials like food and transportation and these different things. So this is the argument for stop putting the lower income earners who are feeling the brunt of inflation through all this pain, who feel like, I'll never get ahead. How about those surveys we've talked about where some people are like, I'll never be able to buy a house? What does that do? That puts them into a perpetual state of wasting their money. If I'm never going to be able to buy a house and I'm always going to be renting, then I'll just rack up credit cards. Then I will just deplete savings and spend my money on things that aren't going to get me ahead. If people feel like they can never get ahead, if people feel like, what Redfin's values are, that there is no American dream out there for them, then they're less likely to save and to try to get enough money to go out and buy real estate, which is the biggest wealth builder. Let's go to the question and answer segment. The first question was asked by Howard Schneider with Reuters. You reference the rise in long-term bond yields. This is what we're talking about with this 10-year. They've been really focused on that. To what degree did that supplant action by the Fed at this meeting. Powell's response was lengthy. It was important. Let's go to this question here, Bobby.
Forward to your questions.
Howard Schneider with Reuters. Thank you, Chair Powell, for doing this. To what you referenced the rise in long-term bond yields, to what degree did that supplant action by the Fed at this meeting?
Thanks for your question. So I'll talk about bond yields, but I want to take a second and just sort of set the broader context in which we're looking at that. So if you look at the situation, let's look at the economy first. Inflation has been coming down, but it's still running well above our 2% target. The labor market has been rebalancing, but it's still very tight by many measures. GDP growth has been strong, although many forecasters are forecasting, and they have been forecasting, that it will slow. As for the committee, we are committed to achieving a stance of monetary policy that is sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation down to 2% over time. And we're not confident yet that we have achieved such a stance. So that is the broader context into which the strong economy and all the things I said, that's the context in which we're looking at this question of rates. So obviously we're monitoring, we're attentive to the increase in longer term yields, and which have contributed to a tightening of broader financial conditions since the summer. As I mentioned, persistent changes in broader financial conditions can have implications for the path of monetary policy. In this case, the tighter financial conditions we're seeing from higher long-term rates, but also from other sources like the stronger dollar and lower equity prices could matter for future rate decisions, as long as two conditions are satisfied. The first is that the tighter conditions would need to be persistent, and that is something that remains to be seen. But that's critical. If things are fluctuating back and forth, that's not what we're looking for. With financial conditions, we're looking for persistent changes that are material. The second thing is that the longer term rates that have moved up, they can't simply be a reflection of expected policy moves from us. That we would then, that if we didn't follow through on them, then the rates would come back down. So and I would say on that, it does not appear that an expectation of higher near-term policy rates is causing the increase in longer-term rates.
All right.
So
he was very consistent in his answer. To mention, inflation is still running above the 2% target, and the committee is committed to that target, to achieving a monetary policy that is sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation down to 2% over time. The target on that, by the way, by most projections, is 2025. It's not something that we get to quickly. The last mile, the last couple innings of the fight against inflation are going to take the longest. Okay. They're not confident that they've achieved that stance, which is a hint towards there could be a future rate hike, even with the out of control 10-year. As we look at it in housing, it's out of control because it's jacking up this 30-year. But they're monitoring it, and they're going to take all the information into account. But really, as he's been the entire fight through here of them raising interest rates, he's been consistent on saying we're going to get to 2% inflation. Whether you believe that's an arbitrary number or not, that's where we are going. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Let's go to the next question here. Or let's go to the next clip there at 9:39 when he's referencing Treasury yields once again, just to finish this one up. At 9:39. I'd like to just go through that.
Say on that, it does not appear that an expectation of higher near-term policy rates is causing the increase in longer-term rates. So in the meantime, though, perhaps the most important thing is that these higher Treasury yields are showing through to higher borrowing costs for households and businesses, and those higher costs are going to weigh on economic activity to the extent this tightening persists. And the mind's eye goes to the 8%, near 8% mortgage rate, which could have pretty significant effect on housing. So that's how I would answer your question.
Okay, so
Quick follow-on to be clear on this.
go to the follow-up.
In your opening statement and just now, you seem to imply that you are not yet confident that financial conditions are restrictive enough to finish the fight. Is that true?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay, so
You
that's
know,
referencing a potential for if they're not restrictive enough, either more time to see if what they've already done um, kind of inhibits this constriction or these conditions, or obviously maybe even a future rate. He referenced the 8%. People don't like that 8 handle, but I think the other big takeaway here is that he believes that what they're doing in the short term doesn't have an impact on this 10-year. I would disagree. Just looking at yesterday, how much the 10-year dropped after this news. So there is some correlation there. He's saying he doesn't believe that to be the case. But it appeared that just on the reaction of the market yesterday, there is some correlation there. Nick T, the Adam Schefter of the Fed with Wall Street Journal, Timmeros of Wall Street Journal asked a question. Let's go to that one.
Confident that what makes you confident that tighter financial conditions will slow above trend growth when 500 basis points of rate hikes, QT, and a minor banking crisis have not thus far?
well, that's the way our policy works is, and sometimes it works with lags, of course, which can be long and variable. But ultimately, if you raise raise interest rates, you do see those effects, and you see those effects in the economy now. You see what's happening in the housing market. You're seeing that now. You'll see if you look at surveys of people, it's not a good time, they think, to buy durable goods of various kinds because rates are so high now. I mentioned again, we're getting reports from housing that the effects of this could be quite significant. But you're right. This has been a resilient economy, and it's, I think, been surprising in its resilience. And there are a number of possible reasons why that may be. Our job is to achieve maximum employment and price stability, and so we take the economy as it comes. It has been resilient, so we take it as it is.
All right. You can finish up here with Jay Powell.
Colby Smith with the Financial Times.
Yeah, get Jay Powell off the screen. We're done with Jerome here, maybe for the next 45 days till they meet again in what I believe is mid-December and make a decision on whether to raise the federal interest rate again or not. There's obviously CPI data that's going to come out between the labor data. There's going to be a lot of data that they collect over the next 6 weeks before they make a final decision on 2023. There's been 4 rate hikes this year. The last 2, there have been no rate increases. We're obviously hoping for another, just hold firm going into the end of the year. But every time Jerome Powell does look for a win on saying, hey, look at what we've done, he does point towards housing. And he did that in his response to Nick T, saying, hey, we're getting reports from housing that the effects of this could be quite significant. You see what's happening to the housing market right now. And so that's one of their big wins that they've had, is what they've done to the housing market. They've made it unaffordable for most Americans now. And they've brought that 30-year fixed way up. They've brought the transactions way down. Let's jump over to Zillow earnings now and cover what they had yesterday in their Zillow earnings. They had a big day yesterday. They announced that acquisition of the CRM follow-up boss, over $500 million acquisition for Zillow in their fight to build the super app. Interestingly enough, during their earnings report, they also commented on the Sitzer Burnett lawsuit. So I'm going to update you on that as well. And so let's jump right into that. It's important to address. These are quotes from the earnings report. It's important to address the high level of media attention surrounding several ongoing industry lawsuits. I think yesterday's hot sheet thumbnail showed all the national headlines. It's not just on, industry media outlets anymore. Okay. It's on New York Times. It's on Fox. It's on CNN. It's on Wall Street. It's everywhere that picked this thing up. Okay. Our thoughts on what the implications may be for the broader residential real estate and for Zillow in particular. The short version is We believe Zillow is well positioned to thrive. So Zillow's comments, Rich Barton, CEO of Zillow's comments about this lawsuit, we believe Zillow's well positioned to thrive no matter what happens to buyer agents across America, no matter what happens to the realtor in America. That's the stance they're taking. It's the same stance that Michael Ketchmark, the lead attorney for the plaintiffs, took. He believes that buyer agencies should be turned back over to the internet and to technology. When he says that, he's talking about companies like Zillow. We expect the Sitzer-Burnett lawsuit that made headlines yesterday will likely be tied up in court for years. So they're acknowledging what NAR is saying, that this is going to be appealed. This is going to take years for a final outcome. So Zillow saying our model right now, where they produce most of their revenue through the Premier Agent program of working with buyer agents, the top 2% in the country through their eyes that can close the leads the best with a 40% referral fee. What they're saying is, hey, we have a multiple year run on this current model because this won't be decided. It'll be tied up in court for years. So that's a signal to their investors that, hey, nothing's really going to change on the way we're collecting revenue right now. As a reminder, Zillow is neither a party to this lawsuit nor to similar ones. Be careful what you wish for. Redfin was a party to the national one. That Michael Ketchmark, he doesn't always seem like the most brilliant guy, but if he does a little digging, Zillow has broker license. Oh, that's the Zillow model. Oh, maybe I should just clump them in to the conspiracy. Oh, they started their flex program in 2019. He could start to put the pieces together. He seems like an attorney, like most, filled with massive hatred. But if he does some digging, he could put some pieces together there, and maybe he decides to put them in. We expect industry changes resulting from this lawsuit or ones like it will involve commission transparency. Zillow is a leader in transparency, in their words, and negotiability provisions similar to those seen in several of the settlement plaintiffs, agree with this, entered into with other real estate franchisors. He's referencing, obviously, RE/MAX and Anywhere there. In forward-leaning markets that have been exploring changes resulting in increased transparency and negotiability, we believe our business thrives. So Zillow believes they thrive through this. And listen, I put them in the big winner camp yesterday, and in our initial reactions, we did a 90-minute live stream immediately after the verdict came out. And if you want to get those pops of information when news comes out, I got the rumor of the NAR CEO change that we talked about at the beginning of the hot sheet. I got it right before the hot sheet. I'll recap it again real quick before we jump off for those that are jumping in. It just so happened I was on the hot sheet. But if that was we would go live immediately with that information. So make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to this channel so that you don't miss those opportunities. We also believe, just to wrap this up, and then I'll get into some of the revenue stuff. We also believe complete disruption to the existence of buyer agents is improbable for several reasons. So Zillow here standing firm behind buyer agents. Buyer agents represent the buyer's interest throughout the complex and often intimidating process of purchasing a home. Buyers need their own independent counsel. And for most buyers, this means a dedicated agent. In fact, dual agency, where the same individual represents both parties, dual agency is a disputed topic, is harmful enough in real estate transactions that it's been banned or substantially restricted in 8 states in the U.S. While there is a do-it-yourself segment of our industry, which we fully support inside of Zillow today, we know via research and experience that for most movers, the stakes are too high for DIY to become commonplace. Zillow was founded on the principle of free and fair access to real estate information and listings. We will continue to advocate and lobby for this principle. Okay, so here are some of the highlights from their earnings report. Revenue was up 496 million. They spent all of that and a little more on their follow-up boss acquisition, up 3% year over year and above the midpoint of our outlook range by 24 million. Residential revenue of 362 million outperformed both the industry total transaction dollar decline of 14% and the high end of their expectations decreasing 3% year over year. Outer performance was primarily driven by connections growth to premier agent partners. He's talking about those live connections to what has historically been called the Flex partnership. And that referral fee goes up in 2024. January 1, that referral fee goes up to 40% from 35. So they're taking a little bit more meat off the bone in that program, which has been the most successful, according to their earning report. This grew faster than the overall industry. Rental revenues of 99 million increased 34% year over year, primarily driven by their multifamily revenue, which grew 42% year over year in quarter three. Mortgage revenue, they're tapping into mortgage of 24 million, decreased 8% year over year, due primarily to higher interest rates that impacted demand for their mortgage marketplace. Quarter three purchase loan origination volume grew 88% year over year from quarter three in 2022. Not many mortgage companies have grown 88% year over year. Reason being, they weren't doing much mortgage before. Remember, they were in the Zillow offers mindset. They got out of that a couple of years ago, and now they are really focused on their core value proposition, which include those relationships with Zillow Premier agents, and they're attaching the mortgage to that. So there's your update on Zillow. I thought it was pretty interesting that they did reference the Sitzer-Burnett trial, which is making waves throughout the industry. If you missed the beginning of the hot sheet, the big rumor circulating around right now is that National Association of Realtors, again, this is a rumor, National Association of Realtors has an emergency meeting going on this morning, and that emergency meeting is taking place to remove Bob Goldberg as CEO. The rumor has it, according to NAR staff, that Bob Goldberg would serve throughout the rest of the year, that Margie Grant, the chief executive officer for the Florida Realtors, which is the largest professional trade association in Florida, would now take on the largest professional trade association in the country as CEO, that of National Association of Realtors. NAR trying to take some heat off of themselves by naming CEO. She's more inside up than outside in. She's been on the National Association of Realtors council chair and advisory council chair. She's well decorated in education and experience, and she is certainly an emerging executive officer in that of real estate. It makes sense on paper that she would potentially be in the running for this. Does it make sense on optics, where a lot of members feel like there is a good old boy, good old girl network at NAR that is currently failing its members? I think there's overwhelming support from the feedback that we got in the live stream and at other times that Bob Goldberg must go as CEO. That remains to be seen if that will happen, as this is just a rumor right now, and we'll see if that takes shape here, and maybe an announcement potentially as early as today. All right, as we enter the day here, we've got a 10-year Treasury at 4.676. The market likes you, Jerome, right now. We like you, Jerome. Thank you very much. We may have a 30-year fixed, according to Mortgage News Daily, that could potentially be as close to 7.5 going into the weekend. It ended the day at 7.69 yesterday. We'll get the Freddie Mac 30-year fixed weekly later today, I believe. That usually comes out on Thursday, so we'll be able to cover that tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to go free format Friday on the hot sheet. The phone line will be open, just like we did during that 90-minute live stream when the verdict came down and we took your live reactions. It was old school radio style. I think that live is up to almost 9,000 views. We'll do that kind of format here tomorrow and just talk about the entire week that was. And if you are looking for more out of what we're doing here at BAM, jump into BAM X. I have an 11-point plan. Anybody can grab it. The link's down below. If you want to share that, Bobby, with everything that's going on this week, the aftermath of the class action lawsuit, I have an 11-point plan that you can grab for absolutely free. It's down below in this link. This is exactly what you need to do to move forward. Okay. You click and you can get the entire plan. On Friday, I believe, Friday afternoon for BAMX members, I'm going to go live in the group and we're going to do a mastermind on this particular plan. But this 11-point plan, anybody can grab, BAMX member or not. Just click the link below, grab my 11-point plan on what exactly to do in the aftermath of this class action lawsuit as a real estate professional. I'm going to break it all down with specifics inside of BAMX Friday at 3 o'clock. If you're not a BAMX member yet, you can use code HOT down below to get 10% off of BAMX. We're going to be going live and breaking down. You get the 11-point plan for free. That's down below. BAMX is coffee money, by the way. In December, that price is going up. So use that code HOT to get 10% off. You're going to see the price. You're going to be like, I get all this value for that. You're going to jump on the live stream with me tomorrow at 3 o'clock where we break down the 11-point plan. Prices are going up on BAMX. We started BAMX in April. We've built such a huge library of content in there. As we bring in more creators, we bring in more content here going into the new year. That price is going up in December. So get in now where you lock in for, if you do the annual, it's $120. You get to 10% off. It's literally coffee money. People that are in BAMX is like, this is unbelievable what we're getting each and every single week. So jump into BAMX, subscribe and hit the bell to the channel. I will see you guys back here tomorrow. Free format Friday. Until then, toodaloo.